Chapter 9. Barachiel. Blinding holy light pinned Lilith to the ground. Her dark, jagged wings splayed out as she struggled against its overwhelming force. Her ember-like eyes burned with fury, though the weight of the divine energy kept her motionless. The air hummed with power and the cathedral trembled, cracks spreading along the stone walls as the light grew brighter. From the heavens descended Barachiel, his radiant form glowing with unyielding authority. His massive, ethereal wings shimmered with divine energy, casting long shadows across the chaotic battlefield of the cathedral. The undead army clashed with Templars in the background, but the space around Lilith was eerily silent, save for the sound of Barachiel's voice. "Lilith," he began, his tone calm but laced with finality, "you stand as a monument to defiance, yet monuments crumble. Your rebellion ends here." Lilith hissed through gritted teeth, her ember-like eyes narrowing as she glared up at him. "Monuments may crumble," she spat, her voice dripping with venom, "but my shadow will fall over the ruins." Barachiel stepped closer, his glowing eyes locking onto hers. "You have brought chaos to creation. You have defied balance and cast aside order. You will be the last thing you see before my light consumes you." The cathedral trembled again as the weight of his words hung heavy in the air. Lilith's struggle against the holy light intensified, her wings twitching as she pushed against the divine force, but it held her firm. A sudden crash echoed through the cathedral, followed by a guttural roar. The massive doors of the cathedral burst open, and the undead surged forward, their skeletal forms moving in perfect unison. Their hollow eyes glowed faintly, and rusted weapons clattered as they advanced, flooding the hall with an unstoppable tide of death. Barachiel turned, his radiant wings unfurling fully as he raised a glowing hand. His movements were deliberate, almost graceful, yet his expression betrayed a flicker of unease. The weight of the oncoming horde was not lost on him, nor was the defiant fire in Lilith's gaze. Despite his unyielding form, there was a momentary pause, a silent acknowledgement of the chaos unfolding around him, as if questioning whether balance could truly be restored through light alone. A beam of searing light shot forth, cutting through the undead with ease, their bones turning to ash under the divine assault. Yet for every fallen skeleton, two more replaced it, their relentless march undeterred. Lilith watched, her ember-like eyes blazing with renewed intensity as the swarm of undead pressed closer. Barachiel's movements were fluid, his blade of light carving through the horde, but the sheer numbers began to overwhelm even his celestial strength. The holy light pinning Lilith began to flicker, its intensity wavering under the strain of Barachiel's divided focus. She felt the pressure ease, and with a growl of determination, she pushed herself to her knees, then to her feet. Her wings unfurled fully, casting jagged shadows across the chaotic scene. Lilith stepped forward slowly, her smirk returning as the undead swarmed Barachiel. The celestial light flared, cutting through the horde, but the relentless undead pushed forward, overwhelming even his divine strength. Barachiel fought valiantly, his glowing blade slicing through countless skeletal figures, but for every one he struck down, more rose to take its place. Lilith circled the chaos, her ember-like eyes calculating as she searched for an opening. "This is no ordinary foe," she thought, her gaze flicking between Barachiel's fluid movements and the relentless surge of the undead. "But even the brightest light casts a shadow, and I will find it." Her smirk deepened as a plan formed, her mind a storm of cunning and resolve. Her smirk deepened as a plan formed. She raised her hand, summoning a massive skeletal figure from the remains of fallen Templars. The towering construct surged forward, its rusted armor clanging as it barreled toward Barachiel. The archangel turned, his glowing eyes narrowing as he raised his blade to meet the colossal undead. But the distraction was all Lilith needed. With a flicker, she vanished and reappeared behind him, her wings slicing through the glowing bonds of his armor. Barachiel staggered, his movements faltering as the divine light dimmed around him. "Even angels can fall," Lilith whispered, her voice low and venomous. She drove her wings deep into the archangel's chest, the sound of shattering light reverberating through the cathedral. Barachiel fell to his knees, his wings flickering as his radiant form began to dissolve. The undead surged forward, their groans filling the cathedral as they consumed the remaining Templars. Lilith turned, her wings unfurling fully as she strode through the chaos. The battle raged on behind her, but her gaze was fixed on the horizon. In the distance, atop a towering, snowy mountain, stood her next target, a monastery silhouetted against the pale sky. The icy wind carried a faint hum, beckoning her forward. As she stepped out of the crumbling city, the chill of the mountain air began to bite at her skin. The blood-stained sands of the desert gave way to frost-laden ground, and the icy wind whipped around her, stinging her face as snow began to fall in heavy flurries. The trail grew steeper with each step, her boots crunching against the snow-covered path, the distant silhouette of the monastery looming ever closer. Halfway up the mountain, Lilith's ember-like eyes caught a flicker of movement beside a dilapidated wagon. The air was heavy with snow, muffling all sound except for the mournful howls of the wind. The mountain trail, narrow and treacherous, twisted upward, lined with jagged rocks and patches of ice. Each step she took echoed faintly, her surroundings eerily devoid of life. This stark isolation made the scene ahead even more haunting, as the flicker of movement became clearer amidst the swirling snow. A woman and her young child huddled together, trembling as they watched a pack of wolves tear into the remains of a man, their husband and father. The woman's eyes were wide with terror, her arms wrapped tightly around the child as the predators growled and feasted. Lilith approached, her dark, jagged wings folding close to her back. The wolves snapped their heads toward her, their glowing eyes narrowing, but with a single, commanding glare from Lilith, they slinked away into the shadows, whimpering. She knelt beside the woman and child, her hand outstretched. A faint warmth emanated from her palm, wrapping around the two in a protective glow. "You'll survive this night," Lilith said softly, her voice cold yet steady. The woman's trembling eased as the warmth spread through her and her child, their shivers subsiding. Without waiting for thanks, Lilith stood and continued her ascent. The howling wind carried the woman's faint sobs as they faded into the distance, replaced by the eerie stillness of the mountain. Snow fell heavier now, each step pulling her closer to the towering monastery, its spires barely visible through the blizzard. The faint hum she'd heard before grew louder, beckoning her toward her next confrontation.